I know, and obviously,
hold on one second.
I said I have two brothers living in Israel. Their children have served in the IDF. I know of the terrible conditions there. I know that. Israel is in this unfortunate position of having to administer a territory that it would just love to give back through negotiation. And it, sorry, can I speak? It gave back.
Let's give Mary a chance to speak. She hasn't said anything in a
Fine.
while.
Okay. I think we might as well talk about the Palestinian territories because we're not getting too far with Israel. That's fine. I'd like to find out if Brian has ever been. That's one question. If he's ever been in the Palestinian territories, if he actually knows any Palestinians, and also, he's saying that Israel's in a bad position, that they really don't want to be there. Well, that is ludicrous because all Israel wants is to keep on stealing land. It's the occupation that is the cause of most of this. If Israel were it's illegal under every international law, the United Nations, the International Courts of Justice, every country in the world, including the United States, does not recognize the legality of Jewish settlements in Palestine. And yet Israel continues. It's got more than 500,000 Jews living illegally in Palestine, living subject to Israeli law, not to Palestinian law, living without permission from the Palestinian people. And every week it takes more and more and more land. So to say that Israel doesn't want to be there is really quite laughable. Its whole purpose in being there, it takes most of the water, and a lot of it is about natural resources. It takes the best of the land. It takes the water. The Israelis in the settlements have many, many more times the water. They've got swimming pools. They're washing their cars. Palestinians barely have enough water to drink. So, let's be real about the occupation, Brian.
Okay, I will try and answer the points that you've just made. My memory's not that hot, but the last one you mentioned was water, and I was speaking to one of my two brothers about water, and he admits it is true that 20% of Israeli water comes from what you would call the occupied territories. But he would point out, or he did point out, that Israel is a world leader in desalination. It is cutting down through the application of science. It's cutting down its water needs, its usage of water from the West Bank, and that again, this is a topic for negotiation, and Israel would like to have a partner for negotiation. You're talking about the illegality of the occupation. The occupation, again, I'm using your word, took place in 1967 as a result of a decisive war in which Israel won the land that was previously occupied by Jordan. This was land that Jordan took in the 1948 war. Jordan had no right whatsoever to that land. The Arab League did not accept Jordan's expropriation of it, nor did any country in the world except Britain, Pakistan, and Iraq. So Jordan was an illegal occupation of Palestinian land. And it's hard to know how you can occupy an occupation. And I should point out that that border, the 1948 border or 1949 border, was an honest line. It was not a fixed border. And the Armistice Agreement specifically stated it does not have any permanence. After Israel took that territory in 1967. There was an Arab League conference in Khartoum immediately after it, in which the Arabs resolved the 3 no's, and anyone watching can look up the 3 no's on the internet. No negotiation with Israel, no recognition of Israel, no peace. So, I mean, Israel is basically left holding the baby without a partner for negotiation.
Okay, so that's the old story. Israel has no partner for peace. And, I always intend that Israel has never, ever, ever wanted peace, has never made any serious attempts to negotiate for peace. Israel talks about negotiation because that's the way to stall and just to divert and change the subject so that it can just continue to steal more land, build walls deep inside the Palestinian land, and hope, which it does every day. And why does Israel have no borders? I mean, why doesn't it say what its borders are?
Yeah, I heard you saying that. You say that they have never ever seriously tried for peace. And let me quote just 3 examples. Okay, you'll probably knock out 2 straight away, so I'll just mention them in a word. 1935, 1947. If you allow me to go on, I'll look about those. But the third one is 2000. And as I say, the agreement that was on the table in 2000 was 94.8% of the pre-1967 West Bank plus an equivalent land swap to make up the 5.2%. The Palestinian capital in East Jerusalem. It was a deal that Clinton and Condoleezza Rice, who were there, and Dennis Ross, the negotiators that were there, were saying, Arafat, you must take it, you'll never get a better deal. But Arafat walked away and said, let Barak go to hell, and let there be 1 million martyrs on the road to Jerusalem. So who's not the partner for peace? Who's not?
Respond to that, because I'm sure Noam would like to get in. I just want to respond to that. First of all, that's bogus. That's BS. That offer was never made the way you're talking. It was nothing like that. And Arafat, God bless him for not taking it, because he sold away the birthright of the Palestinian people. It did not include the right of return. This is non-negotiable for the Palestinian people. So right there, if it was only that, but it wasn't only that. And, to talk about that is laughable. Really, really it is. Obviously, Brian, I think you've been fed some stuff by Batsy because, it just isn't true what you say. It's a myth. We've heard it over and over and over. If it had been what you're saying it was, Arafat would have accepted it. But without the right of return, even if it did include the things you say, which it didn't, without the right of return, he could not do that. He couldn't do that. So,
could I just respond to that, please?
Brian, sure. Just hold your thought. Let's just get Noam in the conversation, and then you can respond. Noam, I know you joined late. Thank you for joining the conversation, and I guess based on what just feel free to comment.
Hello, everybody. I didn't hear a lot of what you said over here. I'm sorry, I just joined late. I just heard Mary talk about the right of return for the Palestinians. The right of return for the Palestinians means only one thing: the end of Israel as we know it. So you need to understand we will not allow that. We couldn't allow that if we want to Israel to continue to be a Jewish state. Okay? So about Israel not willing for peace, you can look back in history and see Israel do everything for peace. We are willing to give territories for peace. We did it with the Egyptians. We give it a territory biggest than Israel, twice the size for peace. We did it with Gaza. The two did exactly opposite of peace, and we were willing to do it again. About Jerusalem, you need to understand, and I will tell it clearly. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, point. But in case of peace, we are willing to divide Jerusalem, half for be the capital of Israel, and half for be the Palestine capital for Palestine state, but only for peace. Okay, so I think a lot of things that I heard here is, I think it's incorrect what you said, Mary.
Okay, then I'll just respond to that. First of all, what you said, Noam, is the core of the issue, is that Israel will never be accepted as a Jewish state. When you say that Israel will not survive if they let the Palestinians return, you're saying what most Zionists say, which is that we will lose our majority. And that's just the way it goes. I mean, this happens in a lot of countries. This is supposed to be...
What do you mean by Zionists? What do you mean by what Zionists?
No, let Mary finish her point, and then you can respond.
I'm sorry.
Mary, continue, please.
While Mary's gathering her thoughts, maybe I could just respond to some of the points she made to me that you said I could respond to after Noam.
Zionists ask you to live and say, so when...
Could I respond?
Sure, Mary will come in. Say what you're going to say, Brian.
Well, that Mary, in what she was saying, used the words that what I said was laughable, was bogus, isn't true. She said that I'm quoting Hasbara. She said that I'm feeding lines from Butsy. She's used apartheid. These are all just flinging insults, for completely devoid of any fact whatsoever, just flinging insults. And I have not resorted to that, nor has Noam.
Okay. I'm sorry if you feel that way.
Resorted to misinformation. I just wanted to finish that thought. It's dropped again. No, just to finish that. The issue is the Jewish state. When people say that nobody accepts Israel, that's not true. I absolutely accept Israel.
I didn't say
everybody I know, many people wish it had never been created.
Mary, can you hear us?
Not Israel. Okay.
It might be a problem, but it's also mandated by international law, as I explained, set up by the League of Nations and continued with the United Nations, that it is a homeland for the Jews.
Jewish homeland. Jewish homeland.
Okay, a Jewish homeland.
That's not a Jewish state. Jews have a homeland in America, too. Jews have a homeland in many countries. That doesn't mean they get a state. That doesn't mean they get to kick out the people who were there. They were granted the right to share that land with the people who were already there. They got a portion of it, and they were supposed to not do anything to inhibit the lives of people living there already. And if they had kept the land, actually if they'd stayed within those lines of 1947, there wouldn't have been so much of a problem.
Yes, it was the Jews.
Do not get land by conquest. This is not acceptable. This is not the Middle Ages. You don't take land because you won a war. This is not allowed. So to say that you got that land because you won the war is just not true. It's not acceptable. No country in the world, no court in the world accepts Israel's right to have taken any land beyond what they were given in 1947.
Could I answer that, please? The 1947 partition plan was accepted by the Jewish community and rejected by the Arabs. It's the Arabs that rejected 47, and not the Jews were perfectly happy with 47. In fact, the Jews were perfectly happy with the 1935 plan, which was much, much smaller, and the Jews accepted that. The Arabs rejected it. And you talk about living peacefully. As I say, that being the case, did 5 Arab nations invade on a war of destruction the day Israel was declared?
No. That, they weren't happy with it. But all of these wars that Israel claims, there was only one time that Israel was ever attacked. So that is, that's all part of this myth that we hear. But there was certainly, the Palestinians were not thrilled about people moving in on their land, particularly the way they did it. And you say that the Israelis were happy. You only have to read what Ben Gurion and people like that were saying. It's all documented. They were saying, we'll take it all. Just give us time. We'll just move. We'll take the hills. They did tremendous research. They knew exactly where everybody was, and they had a plan from day one. So we don't know what would have happened. I mean, we know what happened, but it's easy to say it happened because the Palestinians were not actually thrilled when their land was taken over. But they were not happy.
Could I answer?
So.
Okay, could I answer?
Brian, give Noam a chance to
yeah.
About the Palestine mandate that was the UN, they wanted to build 2 states, one for the Palestinian, one for the Jewish people. Don't forget that the mandate was Israel today, the Palestinian territories, and Jordan, Kingdom of Jordan. Don't forget it. This is what all the mandate. So at first they gave the what's called today Kingdom of Jordan to the Arabs, and the rest for the Jews. And in the end, they sorry for my English. They do another plan to develop the Israelis today. Okay, so don't forget it. And about the walls, you need to read some history about it, because a lot of what you said is incorrect.
Okay. A lot of what's been talking about in the last few minutes is basically what happened in 1947-48 and what's resulted in the present day. I'd just like to give another example. Another non-Jewish Arab community called the Druze. The Druze community didn't take a line of just negate, destroy, refuse. They recognized that they could live in peace with the Jews, and they were a fully integrated part of Israeli society. I point out that Druze, I don't know, Noam, you might be able to tell me, was George Kara a Druze, the judge? I'm referring to a chap called George Kara. A couple of years ago, the sitting Israeli president was sent to jail for 7 years, and the presiding judges that sent him to jail consisted of 2 women and an Arab, who I believe the presiding judge, George Kara.
You're talking about the trial of the ex-president Moshe Katsav.
Yeah, Moshe Katsav. Yes.
One of the members of the judge that sent him to jail was an Arab, Muslim Arab.
The Muslim Arab, George Kara.
He's a judge in the Supreme Court in Israel.
Okay, so it wasn't the Druze, but the point I'm making is that the Arabs throughout could have, in a significant proportion, have made the decision of not destroying, not fighting, living in peace. And those that chose living in peace have had an excellent life, and I'm quite sure they'd much rather be living in Israel than, for example, Syria or Lebanon.
Right. Okay. So I think it's a good transition, actually, because you brought up the word peace. Why don't we move the conversation into some peace solutions that we normally do with other conversations? Talk about the one-state solution, two-state solution. There's elections coming up in Israel. Why don't we move more into some solutions as opposed to just the conflict?
Yeah.
So I guess because let's start with Mary here.
Well, I just think the first thing they need to do is end the occupation, get every single settler out of the West Bank, and the first thing, get out of the West Bank, end the occupation, move your wall. If Israel wants to wall itself off, that's just fine, but move it back to the pre-1967 line. And, that will be a really great beginning to it. The Palestinians just want to be left alone. Life in the West Bank is a nightmare for the Palestinians. So that's the first thing. I think that would be a really good start.
So we should basically do what we did in Gaza, move completely out and then all be peace.
Let Noam respond to what Mary had to say. He's raising his hand.
Don't really know, but there are no exactly occupation now in the Palestinian territories, but you're suggesting to do something like we did in Gaza, to withdraw 100% from the territory, like we did 7 years ago in Gaza, without any promises from the Palestinians. We took lots of families out of their homes and destroyed their homes. And what did we get? We get a terror organization that, I think Mary just gone.
Yeah, she'll come back. Her camera's been going in.
Okay. So what we get over there, that we are now, we did what you said. We did exactly what you said. It was very hard and very painful for us. Believe me, I don't know if you had a chance to do such a thing. I was a soldier in this time, and I was supporting this move. I was really supporting this move. And what happened that we get terror organizations that ruling over there. Not good for the Palestinian people living there, believe me. They shoot rockets at us since the day we left this territory. It's not a good deal for us. I'm sorry.
So then, no. What is your solution?
Okay, my solution. I didn't think about all of it, yeah. But I think the first steps for a solution is education. Okay, I know as an Israeli that grew up in Israel, I'm born in Israel and grew up in Israel, that the education that I get from school, high school, even the army, that peace must be achieved. We always need to achieve peace. This is our main goal, I think. This is what everybody wants. And on the other side, things are different. Okay, I can give you lots of examples, but I will just say it's very different. The education is for, I think, for hating. Not I think, it's for hating. They're blaming all of the trouble on Israel. So I don't think the field, the reality is ready for talking about peace in this situation. So the first step is education.
I would say, I agree with everything Noam says, by the way. I would say that there needs to be a negotiated solution, and there needs to be, I'm afraid, the willingness of Palestinians to take opportunities when they arise. They could have had a huge state if they would have taken the opportunity in 1935, a huge state if they would have taken it in 1947. they would have been in very good situation if they'd have accepted the deal which Mary says doesn't exist in 2000. They need to stop losing the opportunities that are given to them.
Okay, Alex, is Mary, am I?
All right, welcome back.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You said we talked about giving back Gaza. First of all, Gaza is Palestine, and so when one part of Palestine is occupied and abused and brutalized, all of the Palestinians everywhere in Palestine are concerned about that. You could say, if I take your house, I come and I say, I'm going to take your house because this land is mine, or for whatever reason, I'm going to take it away and kick you out, and you have to go and look someplace else. And then I say, but please, I have nowhere to go. And you say, okay, well, you could live in the garage. And this is Israel's idea of making concessions. Israel steals everything and then gives back a little bit and wonders why the Palestinians aren't happy. So yes, Israel did move out of Gaza, which they were occupying illegally. And the main reason they did that, Gaza's never had any strategic importance for Israel, and it was very expensive for Israel to keep all of the military there when it had some 7,000 settlers there. But they had to have military there, and also it made it very difficult for them to attack the people in Gaza because there was always the fear that they might hurt a Jew, and so Sharon moved out of Gaza. It's true, he took them out of Gaza, and we were all very excited about that. We thought it was a beginning, but of course it wasn't anything more than a ploy. Most of those settlers have already been moved into the West Bank, and now Israel is free to go in at will for absolutely no reason at all, and virtually carpet bomb Gaza using white phosphorus. I mean, God forbid that should actually fall on a Jewish person. So and so they gave back Sinai. It wasn't Israel's. Israel talks about we gave up this, we gave up that. This didn't belong to you. And so in the West Bank, the West Bank is still occupied. There are thousands of Palestinian prisoners, many of them held for years, many of them in isolation, solitary, without ever being charged with a crime. They're not charged, they're not tried, they're not convicted, they're just kept on over and over and over. And so you think that the people in Gaza like what's being done to the Palestinian people, so they are not happy. However, if you think that Gaza is free, Gaza has never been free. Gaza has always been under occupation, whether the soldiers are there or not. Soldiers were there. They're still occupying area. They've taken a buffer zone, which is on Palestinian land, not on Israeli land. And they continually, even since this so-called truce, ceasefire, they've killed several Palestinians. They've wounded many more. And they're still flying F-16 fighter jets over Palestine and drones daily, day and night, flying low to make sure that Palestinians in Gaza cannot sleep. They're in fear all of the time. So Israel has absolutely not accepted or not respected the truce. So the Palestinians, sometimes Palestinian resistance they have fired some rockets. So what? The Israelis are dropping bombs on the Palestinians. The Palestinians have no military. They have no weapons to speak of. They don't have a military budget. They don't have military bases where they can train. They don't have tanks or fighter planes. So
could we respond?
They were resistance. There's a resistance. So I don't know why they get the blame. As far as I'm concerned, they're responding to attacks by Israel in every case.
Shall I respond?
Sure.
I'm very much reminded of an English phrase. I don't know if it's travelled across the pond to you, but damned if you do, damned if you don't. Gaza, Israel did such a lot wrong. It was so cynical moving out of Gaza. They only moved out of Gaza so that they could happily bomb it without bombing any Israelis. Perhaps Mary would have preferred it if it would have stayed in Gaza. Then she'd be full of praise. That's one point. I really don't know what the reference to jail solitary confinement is all about. The Gazan solidarity with the situation in the West Bank seemed to express itself in a bloody military coup and the elimination of Fatah from Gaza. That didn't seem to indicate much solidarity with the West Bank. She refers to, sorry, could I carry on, please, answering your points? Could I? So does election involve throwing a Hamas operative off of roofs? But to carry on, you use the word some, as in some rockets, to refer to 12,000 rockets. I consider 12,000 rockets to be a bit more than some rockets. And finally, Gaza have no military bases, no military budget. They are hugely supplied by Iran, just like Hezbollah is. That's a lot more than a base and a budget. I'll let Noam carry on.
Thank you. First of all, about this, you said the settlers moved to West Bank. Well, Mary, most of the settlers, you're not talking about men and women. You talk about the whole families. They didn't recover from leaving their homes and their businesses. They didn't recover. They're living in a temporary 7 years after. They're living still in temporary houses. They didn't succeed to recover the business. They didn't succeed to recover even the families, the families themselves. This is one. Second of all, the international law. You said something about we think they're illegal. It's incorrect. It's very incorrect. We need to check the international law. If we've been there illegally, believe me, they were taking action against us in the international court and everything. And about the ceasefire, you said even in ceasefire we are killing Palestinians and flying our jets low because we don't want the Palestinians to sleep at night. First of all, war, conflict zone is not a nice thing. Not for us and not for them. Believe me, I've been there. Okay? In the ceasefire that you talk about 7 years of ceasefire? No. You're talking about 7 years of shooting rockets at Israel. 7 years that 1 million citizens, not army, not soldiers, citizens, children, women, are targeting by Hamas rockets that get from Iran. You said they don't have budget. They have a budget from Iran. They have rockets that can reach Tel Aviv, and they shoot rockets at Tel Aviv, and that's the military operation that we had to take action after 4 years from the last one of shooting rockets at us. The government cannot agree for this situation that 1 million citizens is under fire. That's all.
I understand, and first of all, as far as the settlers, I just want to say I don't have, well, I sort of have a little sympathy for the settlers because they were sold this bill of goods by Israel, persuading them to move to Gaza. A lot of them didn't understand that they were living illegally, and then they were dragged out, and well, they were certainly dragged out kicking and screaming. I was there at the time, and they were attacking the soldiers there. So yeah, that's all too sad. But what about all of the Palestinians whose homes are demolished or the homes are stolen and they're kicked out and they have to live in a tent and nobody pays them any compensation, and they're living on their own land in Palestine, but Israel decides it wants to take that land. It's doing it now in the Jordan Valley, and it does it every day, doing it in Jerusalem. So, you know, I really don't have a lot of sympathy for settlers who lost their homes. As far as Gaza, you talk about the rockets. I mean, the rockets, how come all these people get killed in Gaza and these people don't get killed in Israel? So it's, you know, it's really ridiculous to talk about the fact that Israel is, Gaza doesn't have the kind of military hardware. They're not allowed to. So yes, they do fire rockets, but who starts it? And no, let me ask you this. When was there ever a truce or a ceasefire that was not broken by Israel, including the one that led up to Kastled? Israel was itching to attack Gaza. There had been months and months and months of a ceasefire that was never violated by the people in Gaza. So Israel violated it, went and killed half a dozen Palestinians in Gaza, hoping for a retaliation. They got a few rockets fired back, and then they went in and killed 1,400 people. And just in November this year, they went back in and you know, a few more hundred people. Okay.
Well, look, you've given a statement of supposed facts, and I'm sure that one person's fact is completely contradicted by another person's view of it. You asked the question, how comes they are killed in Gaza and not killed in Israel? How big is the Gazan program of building bomb shelters, can I ask? And I think the answer is given by everything you here said. I mean, as initially I quoted before, Arafat saying, "Let there be 1 million martyrs on the road to Jerusalem." If you go to look at what happened in the Mavi Marmara thing, where Israel was held to account for 9 deaths, it's been fully established that the people on that Mavi Marmara went there wanting, hoping for martyrdom, as they called it. You're going to get deaths if you don't build any bomb shelters. And you're going to get deaths if you educate your youth that death, jihad, is the highest virtue. You're going to get death if you tell your children that when they die they're going to have 72 virgins in paradise.
That is ludicrous, and I cannot let you talk about the Marmara without responding, because I was involved in the flotilla. I'm a co-founder of the Pre-Gaza movement, and I was part of the flotilla, and there was nobody went there hoping to be a martyr. Nobody went anywhere near Israel. I sailed to Gaza in 2008 on a boat, and I got all the way to Gaza, but we knew that the Israelis might attack us. They would. For whatever reason, they didn't. We never went anywhere near Israel. We never went anywhere near Israeli water. And nobody who participated in the flotilla had any desire to even see an Israeli. They were attacked in international waters by pirates. Any other of the world, excuse me, they were pirates. The people in Mavi Marmara were peaceful people. They had no desire to have any kind of work with the Israelis. They were unarmed. They were attacked, violently, viciously attacked by heavily armed commandos
with paintball guns.
I would ask anyone viewing this, listening to this, to look up the BBC documentary of Mavi Marmara affair. And sorry, I'm speaking. Don't interrupt. To look up Okay, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Please let me speak. I'd ask anyone to look up the BBC documentary of the Mavi Marmara affair, and there you will see the activists saying they have promised their wife that they are not going to come back. They went twice before hoping for martyrdom, but they didn't achieve it. But they're hoping that they'll get it this time.
That's a lie, okay? I went to Gaza.
Well, just go to the BBC documentary and see it.
I have seen it.
Well, I'm asking the listeners to go to it.
The BBC reporter was embedded with the Israelis, went along with a group of commandos to get their side of it. That's where the information came from. But I went to Gaza knowing full well that I might die. Before we got on the boats, we had 2 little boats that went to Gaza. There were 44 of us, passengers and crew. Before we got on the boats in Cyprus, we were asked, if any of you are not willing to die, be injured, be drowned, be arrested, be brutalized, be whatever, don't get on the boat. Everybody got on the boat. We all made a will. We all spoke to our loved ones because Israel had told us they would not let us go. And we said, we're not coming near Israel, so you don't have to worry about us. And they said, well, Gaza is free. So if Gaza is free, then it was no business of the Israelis to interfere with us. We all knew. I tell you, I was very, very fearful. There were moments then, we were told at one point, expect them to board us within the next 20 minutes. I was very, very, very frightened because I knew that I might die. But I felt that it was for a good cause. If I died, I felt that it was worthwhile. So this is what people do. When Israeli soldiers, when Israeli homicide bombers are killed in combat, what do their families say? Oh, we're so proud of him. He did what he did for his country. He was fighting for his country. He was fighting for our freedom. Why is that so different? That's what parents say. They say, I'm proud of my child. So talking about people going out there, nobody in that flotilla had any wish to be hurt or to even see the face of an Israeli. Okay, no.
I want to ask you a question. What was the full purpose of this flotilla? Why do you want to get to Gaza?
Well, there are many reasons. First of all, we had a great deal of material aid for them. We had cement. We had a lot of wheelchairs. We had a lot of medicine. We had a lot of medical equipment that was very expensive equipment, not available in Gaza. Israel didn't allow these things to go to Gaza. We had children's toys.
Okay, so the main idea of this flotilla is to...
That wasn't all. No, that was part of it. No, that was part of the reason we went.
So what is the other part?
The other part is that we do not accept Israel's control of Gaza. Israel said that when they moved the settlers out, Gaza was free.
It was a short question and short answer. Okay?
I should
wait, Brian,
Yeah.
1 second. I just want to understand the main goal of this flotilla. Okay, so you say the main goal of this flotilla is to give Gaza aid that Israel does not supply, and to show Israel that Gaza is not under control of Israel. Okay, so for the first thing of the aid, okay. First, Israel.
I should say.
Fine, 1 second. Israel do bring Gaza aid and a lot, and it's come from my tax money. Okay. And if you want to, it was so important to give them aid. If they don't have any goods of medicine, all this stuff, you should do it to Egypt or to Ashdod port that we offer, because our main fear is that you deliver weapons to them, that shooting at us. This is the first thing. The other thing is, yes, Gaza is under blockade. And it's proven by the international law. Point. Do not say anything else because it's incorrect if you say. Gaza is under blockade because of Hamas actions. okay, about what happened there. I see the pictures, okay? I see the exact pictures, and I don't see soldiers attacks the people on the ship. I see the people on the ship attacks the soldiers. They are not pirates. They are soldiers. They are very good friends. Believe me, I know some of them. And they going into the ships in a paintball gun. You know what is a paintball gun?
So, please, they didn't kill Brooke and Dogan with a paintball gun. They killed 9 people.
After. Did you see the picture how they take the soldier and throw it off the deck? Did you see the picture? Are you serious?
So all I've got to say is that I must go now. It's 6 o'clock UK time. It's been very nice talking to all of you, and no doubt I'll talk some other time. So I'll leave now with best wishes to you both. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Brian. So Noam, yes, I mean, obviously we can go around, and I know your position on this, and you know my position, and I've heard all the stories, and I've seen the footage. I was there. I mean, I really know about this, and I knew the passengers. I knew many of those passengers personally. So I had friends on the Mavi Marmara. I had friends, you know, I was very, very deeply involved with this. So I know what happened. I mean, you know, yeah, maybe they say we had paintball guns. If they were going to fire paintball guns, I mean, the passengers didn't even have that. So where did all these other weapons come from that they were killing people with?
The passenger.
Yeah.
The passenger had pipes and knives.
No.
And you
see,
no
weapons.
You see,
no weapons.
No weapons. You're lying. I'm sorry. I will give you a link for the video. Show exactly what happened over there. If you
yeah, right. That's not true. That's not true, Noam. You know,
okay,
so put out a lot of lies.
It was a fiction movie.
Why did they take the footage? Why did Israel take all of the footage? They never saw any pictures taken by. Why did we never get to see the pictures taken from the ship? Why were we not allowed to see that footage that was taken from the boat? Why does Israel take the cameras and the cell phones and all of everything that showed what was happening from the point of view of the passengers? So, you know, Israel did a great job. I mean, they just took everything away. Nobody could contact any of the passengers for several days. In the meantime, Israel put out its little propaganda videos, much of which is that it had to admit was lies. I mean, they had this ridiculous thing where they claimed some passenger was making some comment about Jews or something, and then they had to admit that that wasn't true. They faked all that. Most of that stuff was fake. The boat that they showed was compiled of different boats. Some of it came from training film because they were doing training for this. They were planning to do this. So, you know, and I understand that. I'm sure many of you do, but it is propaganda.
What?
And I respect your opinion. I mean, I know that you believe what you're saying, but it's completely false. Every boat was searched before it left. Nobody was allowed on the boat with even a Swiss Army knife. In fact, I say that because one guy getting on the Mavi Marmara happened to have a Swiss Army knife in his pocket, and he had to give it up. Nobody could get on those boats with any weapons at all.
You're talking about not a Swiss Army knife. There was a lot of knives. You can see all the goods. Most of the medicines that was there was expired. Did you know it? But never mind. Let me ask you a question. Who arranged this flotilla? Who was the organization behind this flotilla?
It was a coalition, and the main, the one who had the most passengers, and the main partner was the IHH, which is a very well-established humanitarian organization in Turkey that works all over the world, is recognized for what it's done for many, many years. and they became involved in the flotilla with us, and they were able to come up with a boat. We didn't have money, so we were happy for different countries to come up with their own boats. Each country had to raise the money to buy the boat, and believe me, there were many, many more passengers who would like to get on the boat, and that's still the case. No matter how many people Israel kills, there are thousands more people waiting, begging to get on another boat. But it was the IHH that was that brought the Mavi Marmara into the flotilla. But it was a coalition. Free Gaza was one of them, but a lot of them were initiatives from individual countries. There were the Greek boats and the Swedish boats and the Irish boat and Italian and Spanish and French. They were individual countries that raised the money because they wanted to be a part of it.
Okay, I'm going to shut you right now, okay? I'm going to tell you something I'm sure you didn't know, okay? I hope you're sitting, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The IHH is a terror organization, okay?
I'm not surprised about that because I've heard that. It's not true.
Yeah.
It is not true. This is just Israel. This is the way Israel operates. Yeah. It just tries to discredit and
we try.
It just isn't true. I mean, I think the IDF.
You said this is a Israeli way to lie to everybody to get what we want. Yeah.
Yeah, it's never been designated as a terrorist organization. I mean, I consider that the IDF is a terrorist organization. So I guess it depends on your perspective. I don't.
You said the Israeli Defense Forces are a terrorist organization. Israeli Defense
in my
Forces.
Opinion, yeah, absolutely. So if you want to say the IHS is a terrorist organization. Fine, that's your opinion.
Not me. Cliff put.
Who exactly designates?
He put a link over here. He put a link. I suggest you to go to the link that Cliff put and read. It's not me. I didn't know the IHH before the flotilla. I just read about it. Lots of countries in the world recognize the IHH as a terror organization. And about the IDF being a terror organization, I'm inviting you to my house, and I will show you a little bit of the IDF.
No, they're They're a very, very well respected humanitarian organization. So obviously, Israel chose to designate them as terrorists because anybody who has any fault with Israel, is a terrorist. I mean, I've been accused of being a terrorist because I was on a boat to Gaza. So
you were on a boat to Gaza that's going to interrupt a legal blockade, an international legal blockade, and you were in a boat that a terror organization is stand behind this flotilla. This is why you call the terrorist. I don't know if you are. You seem like a nice lady. I told you too. You seem like a very nice lady.
But let me tell you.
And I'm sure that you're not. Your attention is not bad, but
I'm sure you're a nice man. You seem to be. But let me tell you, the IHH is one of only 3,000 charities around the world that has said approval from the UN. So it is very, very highly regarded. IHH has never been designated as a terrorist organization. So, you're totally misinformed there, and unfortunately. Noam, anyway, I have to go. It's been very nice, and I enjoy talking with you, and I believe that you're very sincere. I'm assuming that you're Israeli, and I understand that, from where you come from, it's not easy to be objective. Fortunately, many Israelis, including my dear friend Yonatan Shapira and several others, have seen the light. but I know how difficult it is when you're born and raised in Israel to actually see the truth. But I respect that, you know, you really believe what you're saying, and I'm not saying everything you say is not true. I think your perspective is a little skewed, and then probably mine is too. So that's what it's all about. You know, I have my bias and you have your bias, and you know, hopefully we learn from listening to one another. And you know, I appreciated hearing you. Really, I did. I suppose I can't leave when we've got somebody new coming in. That would be really rude. So I'll stick around to at least say hi to Chloe.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
How are you all?
Fine. You?
I'm great. I've been listening to your very interesting conversation. It's very, very interesting, very engaging, and I appreciate you guys discussing this topic, which is very near and dear to my heart, actually. So.
Why it's very due to heart?
Well, I have become quite the pro-Israel person in the past 2 years. So, you know, I'm studying the Arab-Israeli conflict in college, and I have an organization on campus that's pro-Israel. So, the entire topic has always been interesting to me, but I've really become passionate about it lately. So.
That's great. Well, anyway, listen, you know what? As I said, I do have to go, so I'll let you two have a little love fest, and I'm sure it'll be really, really interesting. Thank you for joining us, Chloe, and thank you again, Noam. I did enjoy the things that we were able to share, and I'll certainly think about it.
Me too.
Okay, thank you.
Me too.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Chloe, did you have like a background about Israel?
I'm sorry?
Or you just
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? No. I've never actually been to Israel before. But I started reading Leon Uris when I was 15, and I started studying the conflict when I was 18. But I grew up with a lot of Jewish culture at my house because I'm a Christian, but we always kept Shabbat and kosher and the holy days as well. So I was sort of inclined to go that route. So it just sort of happened over time. I guess it was inevitable.
You're Christians, but you kept Shabbat and eat kosher?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's an anomaly. It's very strange. But we always kept, I guess we never viewed Jesus as straying from the path of, Jewish traditional customs like Shabbat and kosher. So we always kept those customs. So I guess you would say I'm Judeophilic, I guess, having a love for the Jewish people. So yeah, I was listening to your conversation. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I just want to say, I will tell the truth. I'm native Jewish, but I don't have a relationship with Judaism. I'm not a religion man.
Okay.
Just for the record.
Okay. But I don't know if you asked Mary, because I had left for a few seconds. But did you ever ask her if she thought that Hamas was a terrorist organization? Because I was really interested in that. Because she was like, terrorist organization is in the eye of the beholder and depends upon what you think, and, the usual spiel that I hear from time to time. So, did you ever get a chance to ask her that, or did you think about asking her that?
Well, I didn't ask her, but according for the answer of the IHH, I'm pretty sure I know the answer about the Hamas.
Yeah, I wish I would have gotten on sooner, because I would have loved to press her on that issue, because you know, when you look at the charter of Hamas and what they write, and I really would have liked to seen her say, well, I guess not with a straight face because I couldn't see her face, but just to say without even tripping up her words that Hamas was not a terrorist organization, even given what they have done and what they have incited and what's in their charter, which would have been really interesting, I think, have in this discussion. But alas, she left, unfortunately. But, you know, we might get the chance another time to ask her that, because I'm always interested if people from the Free Palestine side support Hamas.
I think generally Mary seems like a very nice lady, but she's represented the very extreme person, because I'm sorry about my English. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know how to say it. But sometimes she's very experienced in her opinion. So I think even if you show her some evidence, if she believes something else, she said it's not true. I try to confront her with some evidence, in some cases, but she's on her own way. I'm not considering myself an extremist. I think the main goal is peace for both sides. So I think extreme for other sides is not good. So,
I agree, yeah. Definitely. So do you live in Israel?
Yeah.
Okay. And have you served in the IDF?
Yes.
What was your experience in the IDF? If you that out.
It was a good experience. It's preparing me for life. No, really. The friends from the army is life. It's like I'm still doing reserve, so